There was a homicide in the prison. It was mainly that until 2006. And in that year, I was assigned a serial killer case. It was an informant of ours who the FBI did not know he was going around killing people and enjoying it. And I spent 15 years working that case. And that got me working closely with the profiling unit, which is called the behavior analysis unit. I worked with them from 2006 until my retirement.
What is the behavioral analysis unit?
It is a unit of supervisors with the FBI. They've also now incorporated homicide detectives, other federal agencies like ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And they are basically a consult of experts in different categories. Like we'll have cybercrime is a new one, terrorism or threats, crimes against children, and crimes against adults.
How is, I guess, either that discipline or that unit, how is it used in criminal investigations?
So for my serial killer case, since I had never worked anything like that before, they consulted with me of how to approach someone like that, how someone like that functions, and how we might be able to find his victims, because we just had missing people at that time. So they taught me how behavior works. I went to a lot of their in-services. I eventually became the coordinator for Colorado as an arm for the behavior analysis unit to both assist local agencies in some profiling type matters, but also to hook up local departments with the profiling unit. So I was basically an extension of them to Colorado. And following that case in 2006, I kept getting assigned other cases where I could utilize the profiling unit on whether it's missing children, missing adults, strange homicides, serial rapists, those sorts of things.
I guess, how do you use that behavior patterns, or however you want to use the term, in trying to determine or help you as you're interviewing people?
So, in attending a lot of their in-services, but even more so in working with people who did awful things, took other people's lives, the profiling unit had taught us that people follow a certain pattern of behavior. And knowing that pattern assists us in how to approach them and possibly get them to talk to us. It's not an accusatory manner. It's more of a manner on where we try to think like the offender, someone who's done an awful thing, and try to help that person wrestle with what they've done, and even almost explain to them what they've done and assist them in moving forward. So it's looking at the crime as best we can from the offender's viewpoint and trying to understand that person.
Does thinking like the offender work in a generalized sense, or is it better to know something about the investigation itself and things that person may have been doing or saying while the investigation is unfolding?
Yeah, it requires a lot of homework. That's what they taught me, because when we would send a case to the profiling unit, they would digest it completely. It's not some magic formula where they know how people think. They would read the entire case reports. They would ask a lot of questions of the investigator, and then they would just give the investigator some thoughts on how they might move forward. It's not, they would never dictate, this is what you should do. They would say, here are some considerations you might have in dealing with the person like you're dealing with today. The transition for me out of the FBI and really towards the school district was in 2013. This was after the Sandy Hook attack on the first graders. I started getting yearly training, and it was more in depth on pathways of violence. Because we as the FBI were trying to prevent school attacks in particular. So every year we would do more in-depth study on behavior patterns, And we as people, how we go down a pathway of violence before we do something. And so that got me talking to a lot of school districts for the next, 8 years or so, which eventually led to the job that I'm doing today.
So when you're talking about pattern of behavior, you're not talking then, it doesn't sound like a generalized pattern of a behavior. This would be a very specific pattern of behavior for a specific person and case.
Yes, they call it the pathway of violence. And both the FBI and the Secret Service have studied that for years and years.
What do you mean when you say that phrase, pathway of violence?
It means that we as human beings exhibit almost predictors before we do something we're going to regret later. It starts with a grievance. A grievance means something that you perceive is done wrong to you. And so then you have to wrestle with how you're going to deal with that. And you have an idea of how to deal with it. And that sometimes for us is not a healthy idea. If we have stabilizers in our life, we'll go back and figure out a better way to deal with things. From there, we go to planning. And that's if you're going down an unhealthy or a violent pathway, you'll start planning what you're going to do. You take steps of preparation. Then you do what's called a breach. A breach is that you enter into almost a point of no turning back, and then you do an attack. And we studied that for years and years to try to prevent school attacks. And that's what I still do today with the school district. If we see a student or even an adult struggling with that pathway of violence, we try to find out what that grievance is and if they're on a pathway to harm themselves or other people.
So in your experience, have you actually seen this pathway of violence go all the way through that pathway where it does lead to some violent act?
Absolutely.
How did you get involved in the investigation of Gannon Stout's disappearance?
I had been assisting the Colorado Springs FBI resident agency. It's a smaller satellite down here I was stationed up in Denver on numerous cases if they involved missing adults, missing children, just to come in and assist them with whatever help I could give from the profiling unit. And the supervisor, John Cronin, had asked me to come assist with the Gannon Stout case.
What was your role in the investigation?
I didn't come in till about a little over 2 weeks later, and the investigators, both FBI and El Paso sheriffs, just asked me to listen to one of Letitia's phone calls to, I believe it was Al, and see if I can assist, because they had no idea where Gannon was, and to see what we could do as far as where do we go from here, because they believed that she was misdirecting the authorities and wasn't assisting in the investigation. So after listening to the phone call, I spoke with Al, the dad, and with the investigative team and said, I do believe if we don't accuse Letitia of killing Gannon, that she would continue to talk with us and maybe give us clues to what happened to him.
So did that become a strategy for you as you proceeded to help out with this investigation to not accuse her directly?
Yes.
Why did you believe that if you avoided making an accusation that she would continue to speak?
She had already shown a propensity to change her story to fit the facts of the case. And I had seen that in prior offenders as well. And I figured that if we could just keep...
Approach. Just a second. I thought, yes, you may.
So, Mr. Grusing, so we were talking about that pathway of violence and how you used your experience to guide your strategy with this particular case. What about this jury's heard a bunch of phone calls already, heard testimony that you were involved with both the planning and carrying out of these consensually recorded phone calls. Was it also part of your strategy to get her to just keep talking because she would give information sort of on the margins?
Yes, she was the last person to be with Gannon, and she was our best source of information. But we being the FBI, had different teams looking at computers, phones, cars, her travel. But our best source to find out what happened to Gannon was to maintain communication with Letitia, and that was my goal, was just to have Al keep talking with her so we could find out what happened to him.
On all of these recorded consensual phone calls that involve Mr. Stout and the defendant, is it fairly consistent that the defendant would show more concern for herself than helping find Gannon, or might even have happened to Gannon?
Yes, it was.
Was the defendant at the center of her own universe in that regard?
She was.
Did you have, prior to the phone calls, had you ever had any interaction with her before?
No,
During the phone calls, did you have any chance to see her?
no,
Did you eventually have a chance to see her?
I did.
What was that?
It was once an arrest warrant was drafted, and we being an investigative team with El Paso County Sheriff's Office and FBI on March 2nd, arrested her, and I spoke with her in South Carolina.
The person that you went there to arrest and then interview, is she here in the courtroom?
She is.
Will you identify her, please, by pointing to where she's sitting, describing what she's wearing?
She's sitting at that table wearing a red shirt.
Between the two defense attorneys?
Correct.
All right, at this time, I'd ask that the record reflects he's identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect. Go ahead.
Mr. Grusing, was it also consistent that this defendant would mislead the investigation?
Yes, that's correct.
Give us what you mean by that.
Well, in her conversations with Al, she was pretending to be in Colorado Springs when we knew she was in South Carolina. Her stories changed, and it really affected the law enforcement response for her to say Gannon walked away to a friend's house versus being abducted, or something that would cause a greater and more intense law enforcement response initially. And then, as I'm sure the jury's aware, the stories kept changing.
How does that dynamic, where the last person to see an 11-year-old child alive is giving these sometimes very wildly divergent statements as to what happened, how does that affect the investigation?
Well, it makes it difficult, but someone like Letitia can't help but giving out facts in the case while she's making up these stories. The stories are to avoid punishment for her possibly being responsible for what happened and being found guilty. And in my experience, that is what, both in my experience as an interviewer with the FBI and what I learned from working with the behavior analysis unit, that's what we as human beings do, is we fabricate and we misdirect to avoid punishment.
Was it consistent in this case that different times during these recorded phone calls that she would try to shift blame to other people?
Yes,
Did that include Al Stout?
it did.
Did it include Landon Hyatt, Gannon's mother?
It did.
Did it include Landon's ex-husband, Mike?
Yes.
Were there other people that she would try to shift blame to that were known entities, known people that were real?
Yes.
I want to jump into now I'm sure everybody's very excited about this, but some more of these recorded phone calls. We've previously had admitted and published a number of these phone calls through prior witnesses. But before we jump into that, how were you involved in this specific process of preparing Mr. Stout for these calls?
So I would meet with Al along with our team in the morning early before we knew the phone calls would happen. First of all, to check on how he's doing, see if he got any texts through the night, and then to prepare him mentally for what would be a very difficult day of getting news stories of what happened to Gannon. And to watch him was difficult on us as investigators because Letitia was describing a lot of trauma happening to Gannon through this. It's forms of blood gushing and injuries to face and knees, and it just would keep coming, and it was difficult for him to take that in as Gannon's father, but he maintained a very even keel, and I think we were able to help him do that. It was very difficult for him not to accuse Letitia, but Al was also able to refrain from doing that as well.
Would you see physical reactions in Mr. Stout as these descriptions are coming out?
Yes.
Was it important while you're doing this with Mr. Stout to protect the viability of the investigation, meaning instructing him that he couldn't talk to people outside the investigation about these calls?
Yes, he knew that, and
People's Exhibit number 54, which was previously admitted through Mr. Stout's testimony. It's a or these consensual calls that was recorded on February 16th, 2020. This one is 4 minutes and 23 seconds.
Right. I think the witness can stay in the stand for that one.
Yep.
And from the podium?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah.
So I just got off the phone with your girl Nicole, and then I talked to the investigative reporter. You know what I found out?
What?
I found out where Quincy is. So
Okay.
we're making progress. His family at the house believes he's been in Mexico for over 2 years and hasn't been back.
Yeah, no, that's not true.
How do you know?
Oh, okay, whatever. If you're not gonna listen to me,
I did. I listened
now
to
you're
you.
gonna listen to your thing and make up these stories. Really?
No, I listened to you. I listened to your contact of Nicole. I listened to her, the person she sent, okay, who was the investigative reporter that you were referencing. So all that was true. So thank you for telling the truth on that, okay? The part that's not true is Quincy Brown. He's been in Mexico for 2 years. Quincy Brown is not involved in this.
God. Mexico? You got gone, Mexico.
That's what his family said, yeah, that's what his family said.
Oh yeah, okay, the family said Mexico?
Yeah, because they've been looking for him too, believe it or not. Go figure.
Uh-huh. Yeah, sure.
So why the misinformation? Why are you telling me not true? Okay, the news people said this was misinformation. That's why they're not running your story. Okay?
I didn't give them.
Yeah, you did. You gave him Quincy Brown. You gave him misinformation. You gave him a story. Okay?
I didn't give it any news story.
Yeah, Nicole's a news person. You know that. You called her and did an interview with her or statement or whatever. So yeah, you did give her misinformation. That's what they called it. That's what they called it, Tisha. Call them back and cuss them out. Don't talk to me like this. You gave them misinformation.
Okay. But that's who the ID said. That's what it is.
Okay, that's who the ID said, and somebody's took his ID from 2 years ago and is now.
Maybe you need to figure that out because it's not Mexico.
So that's what I'm doing, trying to figure it out. Okay? And you're not working with me here. You said you want to be an involved parent.
Mexico is just in Mexico.
I'm just blown away because you say you want to be an involved parent. You sent me a picture of this dude. Okay, where'd you get the picture from?
Nicole, send this in. I said yes.
Okay, so Nicole sent you the picture. You've also got messages from this dude. Okay? He never says who he is.
Somebody
Yeah,
said they coke.
I got it. But it never said, hey, this is Quincy. Send me my money. You know, I'm the guy.
That's what he said. That's what he looks like.
Okay.
Then he has been in Mexico.
For two.
He's a stupid Mexico. That's perfect. That's just what people do.
Okay, but you said that he wasn't in Mexico. Now you're saying he's in Mexico. They said he was there for 2 years.
People can. I said people can go back and forth to Mexico. Well, that should be an indicator to you right there.
Yeah, but you know what? But you could check it out though.
There.
Check it out though. He's been wanted for over 2 years. If he came back and forth across the border in the past month, they would have stopped him because he's a wanted man. Okay.
No, they would.
And you just said it's perfect that Gannon's in Mexico? That's one of the worst places on the world right now.
It's an area for his.
For who?
You.
What's wrong is my son's missing and you keep lying to me, okay? That's what's wrong, Tisha. That's what's wrong. Okay, fine. Give me my son back. Tell the truth. Give me my son back. Tell- Where's he at then? Who has him? You haven't answered not one of my questions.
To do that,
Well, guess what? I don't want you to call me back because you're not doing nothing but lying to me and sending me in a different direction than what you know is the truth.
okay, whatever. Good for you. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
So, Mr. Grusing, just a couple of preliminary things. There was a word of Nicole in this particular call. Were you aware of who Nicole was?
Yes,
Who is that?
she was a local news reporter.
Okay. And then Quincy, we've had some prior testimony on this from other folks as well. But this is that Quincy Brown.
Correct.
Any indication that he was involved in this case?
No.
What is important from your perspective as an investigator with your years of experience regarding this particular phone call?
Again, Letitia is not taking any responsibility for Gannon being missing. She actually, as Al was able to catch, was almost relieved or pleased that he might be in Mexico, that might even be a possibility. And we had already found out by this point that Quincy Brown he was a fugitive on a wanted page, and like I think you'd said prior testimony, it had already been vetted that he was in Mexico.
Okay. When we talk about misdirection, is this an example of that misdirection as applied to the investigation by the defendant herself?
Yes.
Next, want to jump into People's Exhibit number 55, another one of these recorded phone calls admitted previously under Mr. Stauch's testimony. This is 18 minutes and 42 seconds long, and it's occurred on February 16th, 2020 at 2:34 p.m.
And you said 18 minutes?
Yes, sir. A little over 18 minutes.
Mr. Grusing, you can go ahead and step down and sit in the back. This is are you still playing it from there?
February 16th.
Are you still playing it from there, Mr. Allen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is about that. Been wrong. Yeah.
What?
Do what?
What?
I'm just trying to help get to the bottom of this, teacher, like you said in the message. Like, I'm just trying to do this for Gannon.
Yeah, but this whole time, for 3 weeks, you've been just like all these people. So you know what? I'm gonna be just like you too. Full of speculation, full of lies, full of craziness. I'm gonna be fucking crazy as hell, just like them.
So you're starting that now?
No, the truth, huh?
You're starting that now, is what you're telling me?
No, I'm telling you, no, that's just what, I mean, that's how you treated me. So
No,
you think
no.
that I've been sitting there playing into your game and all the listening and people? You think I'm stupid?
No, I'm just trying to like I said, I'm just trying to get to the truth and get to Gannon. I mean, you, no, you think I'm stupid.
Then you wanted to get to Gannon?
Yeah.
And you think I'm not gonna fucking be a fucking crazy ass? You think that for a second? You think I'm not smart enough now? Oh, I've invested a lot because, oh my God, I worked at the ground you walked on.
Okay, but that being said, why would you give me Nicole's number?
I don't
Okay.
worship that
No,
anymore.
well, that's fine. That's fine. We're miles away from that. So, but for
Miles away from what?
miles away from the truth. First of all, because this Quincy guy's been gone for 2 years. The news said that, not me. Okay, all right. The news said that. They also got confirmation from the sheriff. Okay, that this guy was not involved. Period. It's misinformation.
If that's what they say, then they have the answer.
Okay, well, but between me and you, why can't we just move past Quincy? Okay.
Because you're not trying to move forward in your life with your wife and your family. And as long as you treat me like that, act like that, I'm going to be the same damn way.
Okay, but hear me out. Hear me out.
You treat me like shit.
Okay, all right.
Do you think I'm supposed to come be your hero?
Okay, listen. I am trying to get past that point because Quincy being involved in this.
You don't have anywhere to live and no food? And you still been lay up in a hotel?
Yeah, but you had me believe in Quincy until the news in the El Paso told me it wasn't true.
But no. You don't care.
I do.
Don't fucking matter to you.
Okay, so you've been telling me stories this whole time. Is that what you're telling me? You've been lying to me intentionally.
No. Why not?
So
Because
you got to know. I think you're freaking out because you know. I don't even have to tell you. You know that Quincy being not legit anymore is not good for you, and it's not good for Gannon.
Okay.
All right, so listen. I want to start over with this. Okay, I want to start over, and no, I got you, and I want you.
If you had me, you would have abandoned me for 2 weeks.
Okay, but listen. When I started talking to you on the phone, the most honest you've been to me in this whole freaking process is when you asked me and you showed me that you cared and love for me. You asked me, you said, Albert, do you love me? And then I answered and I said yes, right?
No, Albert, you don't.
No, but no, listen to me. I said yes, okay?
Get on the phone with and tell them all how many. Tell them.
I said yes, and what you said, okay? But you said, if this was an accident, will you stand by me? And I said yes. I said I will stand by you if this was an accident.
Many people did you start texting and telling them that I'm lying? I just want to know because this is where I know. This is why I know you never were trusted through the whole 2 weeks. People did you?
I didn't get on the phone and text nobody about this. And I know you're surprised by that. You can be, okay?
Whatever. You ain't told a soul about no names or nothing.
The only person I've been talking about is the fact that Quincy Brown, with this whatever Nicole Fiaro told me, okay, that the El Paso County Sheriff told you. You said, call. I did exactly what you said. I trusted in you. I got in touch with them. See, you don't even want to talk about Gannon. You're not talking about Gannon. You're talking about you, okay?
No, this is not about tickets.
It is. It is about you.
Want to know why?
That's not true, Gannon. Because you're somewhere. You're healthy and talking to me. Gannon's not. That's why it's about Gannon. Okay. All right. Like I said, I want your honesty. The most honest you've been.
That even understand any of it. If I try to tell you that your baby mama has something to do with it, you're not gonna believe me. But she did.
Okay, then let's prove it. Give me the proof.
So you fucking laugh at hotels with her?
I'm not. I haven't once. I've told you that. I don't care. You could accuse me all you want to, like you've done for 5 years. Okay. I don't have nothing to hide.
You won't even tell me anything. You haven't had the decency to tell me anything about nothing. You started kicking me off, kicking me out of the car, but you talk to her every day, though, didn't you?
Not really, actually.
No, because she's your children's mother, right?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And you have information that you're not telling me, and you have the chance to show that you're better than her. Okay? If she's involved in this, if she's involved in it, let's take her down. If she's
You go make a statement that you are standing by your wife then, and then see what you did.
okay, if you sit right here, do that. Okay? If you sit right
I'm a liar.
No, absolutely not. I'm not putting you down at all. You told me the closest we've been to the truth, I'm gonna keep saying this, is when you asked me if I loved you, and I said yes, okay? And then you said, if this was an accident, and then you said, stand by me. Okay, so that I think that's the closest to the truth we've been. That something happened, it was an accident, and that's the most.
Something happened, it was an accident. Where the hell did I put Gannon? What you think, what the rest of the people think? You think it was an accident that I heard in and did away with it?
Listen, hold on. And I'm going to tell you the truth right now. I'm not worried about Gannon right now, okay? I'm worried about you. I'm worried about standing by you. The only way you're going
Yeah,
to...
tell me what I want.
I'm not telling you what you want to hear. The only way to move forward with this is that it was an accident, which I think is the truth, and that you freaked out. And I told you that over and over and over again. Accidents happen. People freak out with accidents. They will understand that. Okay, but the fact that you sent me on a 3-day chase of Quincy Brown, which is misinformation and not true, okay, that's not good for you. What is good for you is that we can make it through this going down the road of an accident. No, I'm telling you the truth.
10% of people don't make it through